We are here to share some useful information, how you should think about preparing college and help our high schoolers to get into college with the right mindset, but also equipped with the right skills. And this is really a great opportunity for us to invite Natalie to share from an admissions officer's point of view what they are looking for, what signals they are reading. You have a very limited chance to put everything together in this application package, and it's really important to know what are the pitfalls and do not make mistakes. So with that, I am going to start with today's agenda. We'll spend the next 5 minutes. Allow me to quickly introduce Natalie as well as who Kyros is. And for 20 minutes after that, Natalie will actually share with you her experience and know-hows from admission officer's standpoint, her viewpoint, how she's reading that college application package, what's important, what's not. And then I will spend the next 20 minutes to talk about why Kyros is here to help you, what's the community like, and what are the services and products and support that we will be providing you. Of course, this is also your time to ask the right questions, have a dialogue, get to know all of us here better. So we'll have 15 minutes to allow you to ask questions, and we'll answer to the best of our ability. So very quickly, I've met Natalie last year, very impressed with her talent, as well as just a great human being. Natalie did her bachelor's degree and the master's degree from Harvard University School of Education. Afterwards, she worked as an admissions officer for Harvard for 5 years. And later, she also worked for another publicly listed company called 2U, and it's an edtech company that actually support a lot of the top universities' online programs. So I'm sure you will have a very rich dialogue with Natalie today. My name is Rebecca Yi. I'm the co-founder at Kyros.ai. We started in 2018 with the goal to really provide big data and the machine learning and AI as a technology to support our high schoolers and their families to go through the journey of college application with ease and confidence. We wanted to aggregate all the resources. In fact, we are the largest knowledge repository in the world for college prep, but we also wanted to do it in a fashion it's really cost effective for our families. And we want to ensure we have the best quality support and the highly qualified educators on the platform and 24/7 there for you as an online community. So with that, let me give the floor to Natalie to go through for the next 20 minutes, her experience as an admissions officer. Natalie, take it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Cindy, and everybody who's here tonight, today or tomorrow, or in the morning, I guess. It's wonderful to have you all joining today and learning a little bit more about the admissions process. I must say that when it comes to collaborating with Rebecca and Cindy and the Kyros team overall, it's been fantastic. I'm excited that they'll get to share the product and the opportunity to learn here. And I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about my experience in admissions. So we'll go through who admissions officers are and how they make decisions, as well as why planning now is actually quite important, regardless of where you are in your trajectory. And I'll certainly open up some time for Q&A after Rebecca does her portion of the presentation as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started on that? Let's start by talking about who admissions officers are. And I'm wondering, actually there may be a hand raise option, I'm not entirely sure, but I wonder if folks know where this screenshot is from. Feel free to put it in the chat if that's something that comes to mind. It might be dating me a little bit, but I'm going to let you all take a gander if you can guess where that's from. At minimum, do you see I see that somebody already broke it. All right. Indeed. Rebecca, if you want to click on next. It is indeed from Legally Blonde. And why do I even bring this up? Obviously, that's a very iconic photo in terms of what an admissions committee is expected to look like. And this is actually the exact image that I had when I was applying to college. I'm dating myself, especially because that's around the time when I applied to college. And it was quite intimidating to consider that this group of very intellectual admissions officers would be the ones reviewing an application to the school that I had a dream of applying to or actually attending. And what's fascinating is that a few years later, just after I graduated from Harvard, I became an admissions officer. A little bit of a different picture in terms of who was actually involved in the decision-making process. It was really new to me. And if you attend any admissions information sessions from any university, you'll see who the individuals are who are involved in the process. I highly recommend that. But I also would say that it's really amazing to kind of think about more carefully about who admissions officers are, and in particular, why they do the job that they do. And so with that in mind, you notice that there's going to be in different committees, individuals who may have been alumni from the university. They may be higher education experts. It also, overall, they are educators at heart. And they work with the mission to serve students, the university, and society. When you are reviewing admissions applications to these institutions, they're obviously the top institutions in the world, and they are really keen to make sure that there is a great community that is joining the university environment. So those are things that I want to highlight in terms of how you're thinking about who it is that's making those decisions, and most importantly, how they think about finding the strongest case to make an admissions decision for students, because that is their role. Their role is to come in front of a community or committee or to work with their colleagues to make a case on your behalf for your admission at the end of the day. If you can go to the next slide. So how do they do that? When you look at the admissions process, you're probably familiar with these categories if you've already learned a little bit about the admissions decision process. Essentially, there are three categories that they review when looking at applications. There's your academic profile, there are extracurricular activities, and those are slightly divided between just your typical extracurricular activities and sports, and then your personal qualities. And those are all kind of reviewed through a lens of evidence finding, and the different tools that are available there to do that are letters of recommendation, interview materials if that's available. But you'll notice that when it comes to those three different categories, there's the academic curriculum for the academic profile, grades, your standardized test. I would also say that if you do any extracurriculars that are focused on research or academics very, very highly, you'll find that there is actually more that might lend more information for the academic end of things as well. When you think about extracurricular activities, there's sports, clubs, community involvement, jobs, and family responsibilities. Most people don't really think about that being a part of the extracurricular perspective, but it is actually quite something that they will consider on a holistic manner. And then there's also personal qualities, your essay, an interview, your letters of recommendation, etc. Now, I'm sorry if you hear some background noise, but in terms of this process, those are all the kind of components that you want to be considering. Now, when it comes to, I'm going to change the poll here, who we have here in the audience. I am curious, you've all mentioned kind of your results, the things that you're interested in learning about, and it seems that what we're talking about is especially important. But I'm going to launch another poll to Okay. Do you all see a poll now? Which grade is your child in? All right, I see a number of you going ahead and answering very quickly. I love it, love the engagement. Okay, the reason I'm asking this now is because you notice that these are all components that are not just things that happen overnight. You may be in 11th grade, you may be in 8th grade. Those are all actually different time periods, and they demand different levels of focus in terms of how you are actually going to build your academic profile or your extracurricular profile and your personal development to be able to build a case for admission. So thank you for answering that poll. I'm going to share the results real quickly. Looks like most of you are. It's really, really nicely spread, highest representation from freshmen in high school. So that's wonderful. Let me launch another poll. Oh, sorry. Actually, I'm gonna wait a second. Okay, if you click on the next slide, Rebecca. Okay, so when it comes to making a decision about admissions and getting yourself in the mindset of an admissions officer, the best thing to do is to look at actual potential applicants, right? And so these are profiles or, archetypes, if you will, of actual students that I would have reviewed as an admissions officer. And so you'll see that there are students who, are very well-rounded. They're students who, they're all students who actually academically are quite strong, some at different levels, but they all bring something to the table. There are a wide variety of extracurriculars. Student A has a wide set of activities, kind of very well-rounded. Student B is a little bit more focused and has more of an initiative in terms of starting activities. Student C is kind of your all-American student athlete, really devoted to sport, to his or her sport, but also very much involved in the community. And beyond that, you'll find student D has some a strong research and background that is focused on actually academics. You'll see from the various levels of not only academic SATs, but also APs, the number of that he or she took. Those are all, really indicate a degree of focus on academics that is, and researchers in particular at a high level. And then finally, you have student E, who is more on the business-minded end of things, might be looking more for a business type of degree. When you look at personal qualities, this is kind of a bit of a write-up of how you might think about it, what the essays might look like. You might look at what the letters of recommendation speak about. I'll let you all kind of read through it. I won't read through all of those things, but look at the kinds of things that you might consider. And it looks like the student C was cut off, but essentially the letters of recommendation speak of glowing personality and a contribution to community. All right, so I'm going to put you in the driver's seat as a potential admissions officer. If you were to choose, who would you choose? And I'm going to launch the polling now. All right. You see a number of you are making your selections. Thank you for doing that. Wait a couple more seconds. Feel free to take your time to read the notes. I'm gonna wait 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gonna end the poll. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm going to share the results. Looks like all of you really across the spectrum have a wide variety of expectations of who it might be that you would admit. A number of you said A, clearly that was the one that won out, but student E was also somebody you all found a potential candidate. And realistically, as I said at the very beginning, these are actually all admissible candidates, right? Some of these may be edge case more so than others, but in reality, depending on the situation, the reality is that the way that an admissions officer will consider and make a stronger case where for one of these students really depends not just on this information. And so this is the key piece to consider. There's many students who may have these similar types of backgrounds, right? But this isn't the only thing that is going to be considered in the application process. And that is something that is going to be important to think about when you are actually putting your application together. Again, it is your opportunity to build a case for your admission. So if you go to the next slide, let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. By the way, if you're accidentally clicking and adding some images onto the slide, please feel free to stop doing that and delete those. It'll make it a little bit easier for everybody to read. No harm done, just kind of letting you guys know. But yeah, Raka, if we can move to the next slide, that'd be wonderful. Okay, so I put this together in order to kind of visualize a little bit more what we mean by the decision-making process and all the different aspects that an admissions committee or admissions reviewer is going to be looking for when it comes to reviewing your application, okay? So you'll notice here that the three circles in the middle highlight the three areas of focus that we just highlighted: academics, extracurriculars, and personal qualities. And those are the things that you can bring to the table yourself as an individual student, as an individual applicant. Those are the things that you'll have the most control over, right? But those are always reviewed on a foundation of evidence, right? This is where your essays come through. Yes, that's part of the evidence, but it's going to make a big difference with things that are outside of your purview, how they verify what it is that you're saying about yourself. So if you are a talented startup person, or if you're a student athlete, it's going to be important to understand at what level. So does you stand above the rest? And how can we verify that? How can an admissions officer or committee verify that that is the case? And this is where your letters of recommendation are really important. They are going to be kind of a third-party verification system through which the reviewers are going to have a better sense of why you actually stand out from others, whether it's for this year or other years, and this experience of the educators that you work with, whether those are your teachers or your guidance counselors, which is also the reason why it's actually quite important for them to get to know you a little bit better. So those are a couple of the things that I think are important to keep in mind. Those are relationships that you build really throughout your entire high school career. And if you're later on in your high school career, it's not the end of the world. It's not too late to do that, but you want to be very conscientious about getting them to know you and learning more about, maybe not learning about them specifically so much as having them learn about you and who you could actually consider them getting to know you a little bit better. Okay. Beyond that, an admissions committee is going to consider your overall personal school, city, state, country, world context, as well as an applicant pool and university needs. So what do I mean by that? If you are a very well-rounded student who is a student leader and things of the sort, if they have, you saw in the option A that you chose, you saw that there were some family challenges that that student faced, right? And so that overcoming those challenges, having somebody making a contribution to his family, in addition to being a student leader, was something that would likely stand out as a potential student. But then maybe there is another student that has a great professional opportunity. They were able to launched their own startup, and they were able to speak to, let's say, their experience. If they actually represent that they did that really well, and they have evidence from outside of that they actually were successful, that's going to be something that they rely on. But the other piece is that, if it's very different if you are somebody who started something from the ground up without a lot of help versus somebody who has had all the opportunities and you have maybe not taken them up to the level of actually taking advantage of them. So essentially, the point of all of this is that an admissions committee is going to really be mindful of your particular family, school, country, and world context when it comes to understanding where you come from. That's why the concept of working versus doing an activity is something that is actually reviewed carefully, because some people can't do a lot of activities. Some people don't have a lot of opportunities to do extracurricular activities. Some people can only work, and that's important for their families, and that's something to consider. Now, again, all of these students are going to be admissible, but it depends on what broader context. What I mean by the applicant pool and university needs, I mean that there may be a lot of students who fall into the category of student A, right? And if that's the case, maybe there are student athletes who would be a great fit and who we need to have in the, who would actually be a great fit for the community that the university is reviewing for. So those are all considerations that they're keeping in mind when it comes to, for example, a specific talent in an extracurricular activity. Maybe there is a need in the orchestra for a first chair violin, right? And typically at a high level that, place at one of these institutions, it would be an internationally renowned first chair, right? It's most likely to have somebody who's very high level, but they again would want verification for all of these pieces. And so those are the components that I want to kind of highlight, that it's not just about checking a box on all of the different activities. It is also thinking about where you stand and what you have to bring to the table, and really how you have made the most of what you have available to you. You do not have to have an extraordinary hardship to be admissible to these institutions. The idea is that you want to be thoughtful and understanding of your own context and what you have learned, and therefore highlight how you can bring value and bring an additional voice and experience to the university community that you're going to be joining. And that's the point of the application process. When application reviewers go through your application, they're going to look at your at all the different components. Maybe there'll be the first reader, there'll be a second reader, they may be going into a committee, and they're going to look for that second letter of recommendation, going to look for that letter for that interview if there is one. They're going to look at all that information in an effort to make a case for admission to you. And that is how they choose among the top students for their classes. To the next slide. Okay. And so this is, I've highlighted that information. I hope that's helpful in helping you think through the application process, your own effort to really put the puzzle together and build a case of admission. We often get questions of whether different schools have specific preferences, like does Stanford prefer entrepreneurs? Does MIT prefer people who have won national competitions? Does Harvard like students with strong leadership? And the answer is there's no silver bullet. Doing one of these things does not guarantee you admissions, and that's a tough thing to hear. But there's a reason why we have these resources and these communities exist to support students, because there's a lot of there is no silver. What I was saying was there is no silver bullet, and as a result of that, you want to think about your own situation and be thoughtful about what you bring to the table for that particular university. That's not to say that an MIT, which is obviously very technologically focused, is not going to have a focus on finding talented students in STEM and finding evidence along those lines. But they have a wonderful community of non-STEM individuals as well in their community. So think about that is actually true, that there are these universities do have their own flavor of their decision-making process, but they are looking for a broad community on the whole. At Penn, for example, there's the Wharton undergrad program, right? And obviously they were going to look for more business-oriented individuals, but they also have a more liberal arts option. So you want to think about what are the different programs that are available, right? If they have different schools, if you apply to the entire school altogether, you want to be mindful of that community on the whole, but also recognize that they're likely to look at all of you from the perspective of a broader community perspective, what you bring to the table and add to the community. That said, if the school that you want to go to doesn't have an equestrian program and you are a top equestrian talent, that may not be the thing that's going to help you stand out, because there's not going to be a great fit. That doesn't mean you're not wonderful, but it may not be the thing that is going to have a natural fit into the community. So also consider that. All that to say, there's a lot that you want to do in terms of research and understanding these institutions so that you can align yourself best to that community and then put your best self forward in your application process. If you can go to the next slide. And so this is why starting early matters, right? I think I was sharing that this isn't an overnight process. If you're later on in your career, in your high school career, that's again, totally okay. And it also means that you want to reflect on what you've accomplished so far and be quite intentional about what you have remaining in your career. That said, if you're also earlier on in your high school career, you want to take the time now to plan ahead, explore possibilities, use the resources you have to build an admissions case. And I say this in every session that I can because I do think it's quite important. This isn't just about getting into college. It's important to consider that exploring your possibilities, exploring all the options that you have, and learning and making the most of your high school career is actually something that can really enrich your life. I think it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle of admissions. It's a pressure cooker. And the last thing we want to do is to enable just to be more stressed out about that. The one thing you want to think about, and essentially what I'm saying is your high school career, and of course your college career too, but your high school career is an opportunity to really try some things out, explore your possibilities, learn new things. And if you've watched Soul, I love that movie. I hope you've watched it. If not, I recommend it. It really talks about what is important in terms of your life and finding your own contribution, right? What is your spark? And so I hope that as part of this process and your learning experience, you're not just thinking about college as the end goal, because it is an end goal and it is obviously an important one, but it's also a broader perspective of your life and what you can grow into in terms of your academic and college career. So that is my hope for the experience that Kyros can offer. If you can go into the next slide. Now, that's not to say that doesn't require a practical approach, right? You are applying to college at the end of the day. And so what Kyros offers is a plan for you to accomplish that. And this is something that we put together for each of the years that you are in school, with the goal of giving you a grand perspective of how to approach each year of your high school career. And the Kyros product actually walks you through all of those pieces. It actually not only gives you the high level perspective of what you want to focus on year to year, but it also gives you the opportunity to do that on a granular level. On a week-to-week basis, you're going to have the reminder to study for the SAT or to talk to your guidance counselor or to whatever activity you might want to be doing. And that's the beauty of the program, is that it has this reminder, but it also does it with a mindset of what are your interests and what do you care about? And the resources that are available there are fantastic. So that's my section of the conversation, but I think this is where it's a perfect segue into what Rebecca has to share with regards to Kyros and the technology, because I think it can explain a little bit more how that fits into the picture of helping you prepare for college.